4 points of rebuttals to take these guys entirely out of this debate, 3 points of positive matter on the unreliability and historical precedent, on international interests, and on comparative utility in the entire debate. So first, the EU and the lack of homogeneity. That's entirely bullshit. David contradicted himself when he said there's no homogeneity in the EU. Then he talked about how they have a central government, a central parliament, and how they've been able to institute policies that have affected everybody. The EU today has refugee quotas that stipulates how many refugees every country must take. The EU today has a single currency that every country in the EU practices. How can you then come and tell us that the EU is not capable of making homogeneous policies that affect all the 23, please quiet, that affect all the 23 countries in the EU? That's a load of contradictory bullshit. Now, here is the thing. I've shown you how the EU actually can implement policies. They have not shown you how, despite just because Britain left and France wants to leave, automatically the EU does not have homogeneity. That's nonsense. Secondly, David gives you this very ridiculous idea about how if you don't trade with Britain again, you're going to lose connections with 80 countries because they so much love Britain that if you don't trade with Britain again, they won't trade with you anymore. He gives the example of Singapore, but let's bring it closer to home, Ghana. Are you telling us that if we decide today not to trade with Britain, not to prioritize Britain again, Ghana is going to stop giving us visas to enter Ghana? They're going to make it more difficult. They're going to refuse to trade with Nigeria. That's a lot of rubbish. He gives me the example about American cooperation, and I asked him a POI, he begins to explain himself, he says history. Here's the thing, America did not fight on behalf of Britain. America fought because it was attacked by Japan in the Second World War. That was the reason why. Otherwise, countries always give themselves passive aid. Even Britain and America and everybody gave Nigeria passive aid during the Civil War. It didn't mean that they would have gone into a war on behalf of Nigeria. Nonsense again. Now again, he tells you about how because of the Commonwealth that Britain is able to not trade with 80 people again. We tell you that Britain in and of itself does not respect that Commonwealth. If did Britain consult any of the Commonwealth countries when it decided to leave BREXIT, to leave the EU, knowing fully well that that decision was going to affect the economic growth, the economic fate of those countries. Even Scotland, Britain's neighbor, England's neighbor, was not consulted, and today Scotland wants to leave Britain in order to go and back and join the EU. How can you then tell us that we should respect that cosmopolitan whatever when Britain in and of itself is not respecting it? Nonsense again. Thirdly, cosmopolitan, please quiet. Cosmopolitan, we tell you that logical disconnect in David's case and Toby's case to say that because the person does not want to be dictated to equals that the person does not want to dictate to other people. It's rubbish. Now, assuming the best intentions for why Britain left the European Union, that they love cosmopolitan and they want you to have your own interests at heart. Fundamental thing is that it didn't stop the fact that America was spearheaded in the League of Nations and UN. It doesn't mean that America is not spearheading neo-colonialism around the world nowadays. That's a logical disconnect that do not tally in their case. But assuming, and this is the real thing in today's debate, we say as a matter of fact that the Brexit was not a whatever cosmopolitan symbolic gesture. It was something that was done by an ultranationalist, racist, isolationist party in that country. So we say as a matter of fact that it's a logical thing that if a country is racist, then how the fuck can you tell us that they are not going to want to control Africans who most of them see as inferior? What kind of logic is that? They don't see us as equals. They're not going to treat us as equals. They're going to see us as people, as tools to use in order to further their own ends. Now, on the issue of ease, very stupid argument. It tells you that because we cannot relate in French, that we are not going to trade beneficially. It tells you that because the systems are different and infrastructural similarities. What the fuck is infrastructural similarities? We don't even drive on the same side of the road. Our bridge is different in America than they are in Britain. So what the fuck do you mean by similar systems? The fact that we have the same language does not mean. In Africa today, the largest country who has been trading with Africa is China. Nobody speaks Chinese in this room. But that doesn't mean that China has not been building bridges, building roads, building railways across African countries. A lot of rubbish they bring to you. Now, positive matter, we tell you as a matter of fact, this debate is about whether or not it is a better choice, a wiser choice to trade with the European Union than with Britain in the event that there is an equality of terms in any agreement. Now, first, on the unreliability of Britain as an agreement partner. So we tell you that historically, we have seen the selfishness of Britain in its policies. So we agree that selfishness is an integral feature of international relations. We agree to that. But we say that the degree of that selfishness is very, very different from country to country. So a country that refused, while in the EU, to change its currency, a country that having benefited the largest from the EU as the most important member of the EU, decided to leave when it was asked to take more refugees than the ultra-nationalist racist guys in the country decided they didn't want to take. How can you then tell us that it's more logical to trade with that person who has shown itself as being unreliable when it comes to honoring international agreements? We tell you that logically it is more important to trade with a partner or to have international bilateral agreements with a partner that has shown itself to be reliable when it comes to honoring those agreements. There's no point to an agreement. The contract is a piece of paper unless people have the willingness to enforce it. Here's the important thing of this debate panel. African nations are weak. African nations do not have power to enforce this. So logically, it's better to trade with somebody who has a historical precedent than somebody who is just going to bully you. Now, Britain is having issues leaving Brexit, leaving the European Union, asking them to pay money. But if Britain were to decide to break off an agreement with Nigeria, what the fuck are we going to do? Nothing. Secondly, the international interest. Our open gives you extensive analysis on how this is going to signal a change and it's going to make African countries seem more independent and able to handle their own matter. But the impact of this argument is this. We tell you what it's going to do is that it's going to make African nations, commonwealth nations, be taken more seriously. It's going to make sure that they are seen as no longer being pawns of Britain or any other country. And here's the important thing of this debate. It's no longer going to be an issue of just not being a pawn of Britain. It's going to be an issue of sending a symbolic gesture to say we are no longer going to be pawns of any country, no matter how powerful you are, no matter what kind of influence you have had in our country in the past, no matter how many slaves you took or how long you colonized us for. What it's going to say is that we are independent and we discourage agreement breaking. Point.
The fact that they can come to this debate and say ultra-nationalist parties were voted by over 51% of the population are bad is exactly what is wrong with cosmopolitanism, and that's why we should reject such notion. We should rule ourselves as
panel. This debate is not about whether racism is bad. You understand? If you like, you can believe that whites are superior. Our own point is that if a certain people believe that we are inferior, we should not trade with them because they're not going to treat us as equals. We are not arguing against racism. It's fine if they want to be racist or whatever kind of racist they want to be. That's an illogical argument from them. Now, comparative utility, we tell you that if we prioritize trade with Britain, we have limited our utility in Europe because Europe is a very important continent, both strategically, military, financially. Now, if you trade with Britain, a tiny island on the edges of Europe, what you're going to have is that you're not going to be able to influence anything beyond their tiny borders of about 40 million people, whereas Europe in and of itself contains more countries than that who have a larger population than that, so access to market, all those things is going to be decreased. But we tell you, if you trade with the European Union, you have access to about 90% of Europe. It's just more logical that we trade with them. Bureaucracy also is a very important point here. Now, we tell you that being in a conglomerate of nations is more beneficial for African countries because of the bureaucracy involved in breaking up agreements, whereby Britain can just wake up one morning and decide to break up an agreement with Ghana or Nigeria or any other country. In today's debate, the arguments fall. I've shown you how. I don't have to repeat them. We tell you about unreliability, historical precedent. We tell you about international interest and how it's going to discourage agreement breaking. We tell you about comparative utility on the basis of influence in Europe as a continent and the bureaucracy involved in breaking up agreements. And we're never be more proud of those bullshit like they bring to you.